y'all, it's me again. I'm going to continue reading from my book, The Secret Lives of the First Ladies. Let's go! Little what's her name? Bess Truman suffered through 2 miscarriages before she delivered a daughter, Mary Margaret Truman, on February 17th, 1924. But excitement over the successful birth quickly gave way to confusion over what to call the child. While Harry wanted to call her Mary after Truman, Bess insisted on her mother's name, Mary Margaret. 4 years passed before the parents could agree on a name. Bess went out. Margaret it was. Okay. Harry plays the blues. During a National Press Club meeting that Harry attended while vice president, he decided to entertain his fellow partygoers by showing off his talent at the piano. But upon playing, he was joined by a fellow entertainer named Lauren Bacall, who proceeded to draw herself up into a 60 pose on top of the instrument. Harry did his best to look uninterested, but the paparazzi caught the whole scene. Upon seeing the picture in newspapers, Bess remarked that it was time her husband quit the piano. Cause he was trying to look on his own, but he was like, Hi there, sexy lady. Sexy lady. Sexy lady. Bess Truman crashed. Bess Truman wasn't big on public appearances, and her first one as first lady gave her plenty of reason not to be. When called upon to dedicate a naval airplane, Mrs. Truman gave a very brief message into the microphone. They proceeded with the launching ceremony by smashing a champagne bottle against the machine's hull. The bottle, however, had not been properly prepared and remained as heavy and unyielding as a cloak. To her sublime embarrassment, the first lady swung away several times without any result, until the doctor agreed to smash the thing with a wrench. Wow. Laundry on the Hill. Bess Truman's attachment to Independence, Missouri was always a strong one. She even preferred the laundromats back home. Upon moving to Washington after Harry's election to the United States Senate, she was so unimpressed with capital cleaning establishments that she insisted on having her laundry delivered by long-distance mail to Kansas City for washing. Wow. Okay. Keep off the grass. President John F. Kennedy's assassination in 1963 inspired the federal government to provide Secret Service protection for all previous presidents and their families. But Bess Truman wasn't thrilled at all when her agent showed up in Independence, convinced that they'd be another threat to her treasure privacy. She didn't even allow them onto the property. Wow. And I thought it was a lot like a no, but because I would allow the Secret Service to protect me. I'd be like, you can protect me, but also gotta protect myself and my home. But this gun, motherfucker! I'll help, but you can still be here to protect me. Okay. Do we have a deal? Good. Bye. Have fun. Anyways, chapter 30. Mammy Dowd Eisenhower. November 14th, 1896 through November 1st, 1979. Married July 1st, 1916. Presidential husband, Dwight D. Eisenhower. Children, Doug, Dwight, and John. First lady, 1953 to 1961. Astrological sign, Scorpio. Still no more Virgos. Damn it. Oh well. Hopefully the next first lady will be Virgo. We'll see. Oh well. Religion. Episcopalian. Sound, but every woman over 50 should stay in bed till noon. I mean, like, Not me. I like to get things done first thing in the morning. For Mamie Eisenhower, moving into the White House came naturally. It was government housing, after all, something she was long familiar with as a former Army brat. Becoming chief hostess of the country, and a pretty popular one at that, was the crowning moment of a military odyssey that saw no small amount of hardship and adversity that nearly claimed her marriage and her life. Interestingly, hardship and adversity were two things that were conspicuously absent from Mamie's childhood. Her father, John Selden Dowd, I don't know how you pronounce her last name, made so much money with his Iowa meat packing business that he retired in his 30s and moved with his wife and 4 daughters to Denver, Colorado. There, Mamie attended Miss Wilcox Finishing School for Ladies of Refinement, perfecting her dance steps and posture. She made her debut as a Dowd's winter home in San Antonio, Texas in 1915, and blossomed into a lively and very popular society girl with no shortage of interested males in tow. At 19, Mamie was a pretty pampered princess with a world of options, but while wealthy beaux crowded about her, the only fellow she seemed to have taken seriously was hardly upper crust material. Dwight David Eisenhower, known as Ike, was a newly minted second lieutenant out of West Point who was stationed at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio. He was handsome, devoted to his duties, and anything but rich. Something that alarmed Mamie's father at first, until he got to know the affable young officer. The issue of living on an army salary, however, was a sobering one, and so the Dowds gave their blessing to the lovebirds at the 1916 wedding. Mamie's father had seen fit to warn his coddled daughter about what she was in for. The warning went unheeded, and the new Mrs. Eisenhower soon found herself immersed in a nightmare for which she was consummately unprepared. The society belle, who had been schooled in piano and voice instruction, was now required to cook and clean without servants, to make do in army-based housing that was grimy and often without electricity, and, worst of all, to confront the fact that she would never be as important to Ike as his country. Mine was almost as scarce as Ike, who was often called away on military business for long stretches. And Mamie, well, she was lonely and miserable. Wow, she was used to having servants and whatnot to do everything for her. That, and her parents, stupidly enough, didn't prepare her for that. All they did was try to warn her. They're like, you know you're gonna have to cook and clean for yourself, right? If you go with this man. I know what to do. Okay, it's your life. What? I really seriously have to cook and clean for myself now? Whatever. Mamie Eisenhower never missed an episode of As the World Turns. Her self-scheduled appointments before and after, but never during the program. Damn. It was Ike's turn to be miserable when the United States entered World War I in 1917. Denied the overseas posting that was a holy grail for all sanguine soldiers, he resigned himself to his stateside training duty. A job that nevertheless took him away from Mamie Yeagan. The birth of their first child, Dowd nicknamed Icky. I don't know why they nicknamed him Icky. Merely exacerbated her loneliness with exhaustion. After sinking into a coma, she was warned by doctors not to strain her heart, which had suffered a blow from rheumatic fever years before. And so went from posting to posting. Mamie did her best to raise Icky, endured the separations from Ike, and acquired vital hosting duties in filthy hovels that the military had the nerve to call housing. Though popular with other Army couples for their dinner parties and card games, the Eisenhowers found their marriage deteriorating from stress. In 1921, things went from bad to worse. Icky died from a bout of scarlet fever, mixing grief and guilt into the frustration and estrangement that were already threatening their relationship. The Army seemed not to notice and made things harder on the Eisenhowers by packing them off to the fatigued wilds of Panama. down. Mamie had become accustomed to low expectations, but what she found in Panama took the cake. Consigned to a motoring pile that was literally infested with a menagerie of uninvited guests, she spent her hours swatting at clouds of mosquitoes, dodging lizards and cockroaches, and watched Ike chase bats around the bedroom with his sword. After traveling to the States to deliver a second son, John, she took her time returning to Panama. And then in 1923, left again, her health as shambles. By the time she mustered the strength to go back, she had turned a corner, resolving to make the marriage work at any cost. The improvement in the Eisenhower relationship coincided with Ike's rise to prominence in the Army. After attending the Command and General Staff School at Fort Leavenworth, Ike took his family to Paris to write a book on World War I battlefields. Then it was back to Washington, where Ike became Douglas MacArthur's chief of staff, and Mamie earned her stripes as a celebrated hostess of capital caliber. They followed MacArthur to the Philippines, where despite car accidents that sent her to a coma, Mamie continued to entertain her husband's fellow officers with panache, and then came back to the United States for a series of postings that stretched from Washington State to Virginia. Through it all, Mamie evolved into the ideal army wife, a devoted and charming homemaker whose parties at Club Eisenhower became legendary. World War II posed the final and perhaps greatest challenge to the Eisenhower marriage. After Ike was sent to England as European Theater Commander in 1942, Mamie remained in Washington, D.C., where she socialized with fellow war wives and volunteered for the Red Cross and the Women's Volunteer Services. But coping with the separation from her now famous husband was only part of the challenge. The other part had a name: Kay Summersby. She was one of Ike's drivers, and if rumors coming back from Europe were to be believed, one who shared more than just a jeep with a German. Ike bent over backwards in his touching correspondence with Mamie to deny the affair. She seems to have believed him from the outset, but did nothing for Mamie's peace of mind, especially as her legendary husband's exploits launched her into a fame with which she was uncomfortable at first. Though convinced of Ike's fidelity, Mamie found herself wrestling with public opinion for the first time, as Summersby's name made the gossip circuit. Something else making the gossip circuit as well: Ike for prison. In true apolitical military fashion, Eisenhower denied the notion flat out. As for Mamie, she found herself torn between the tantalizing possibilities and the horrifying responsibilities. The idea simmered after the war, while Ike became president of Columbia University, and then in 1951 spent a year commanding NATO troops in Europe. As if bowing to his fate, Ike came around to the presidential idea in 1952, winning the Republican candidacy. Dwight Eisenhower was a demigod who had liberated Europe from fascism, a Kansas-raised roughneck whose intelligence, political savvy, and profound sense of duty had allowed him to become the engineer of one of the greatest victories in human history. And yet in the 1952 presidential campaign, his great asset was Mamie. "Where's Mamie?" cried the throngs that gathered around his campaign train during the whistle-stop tour. "I like Ike," proclaimed the campaign, but I love Mamie." This embattled army spouse with a bad heart and claustrophobia had become an overnight sensation, and she loved every minute of it. Mamie gave interviews with enthusiasm, shook hands, preened before the crowds, and welcomed the side cameras. A New York Times columnist equated her with 50 electoral votes, and Ike never ended an appearance without asking her to come out and appease her cheering fans. The Eisenhower juggernaut was irresponsible, but for all of her energy and presence during the campaign, Mamie, whose fans expected huge things from her, stayed in the background during her husband's two terms. Like Beth Truman before her, the new First Lady insisted that her husband was the elected official and that she was his wife. No more, no less. "Ike runs the country," she cried, "and I turn the lamb chops." She set up her headquarters in bed, out of which she would not emerge until afternoon. Her press appearances were few, and then only to offer information of a consistently non-political nature. As hostess, however, she was outstanding, making regular appearances with her husband and during events in which she struck thousands of paintings in a single day. With all their connected to influential military and political figures, the Eisenhower's real important entertainments are plenty, all of which were run with an eye to detail and spit and polished formality. In fact, the First Lady made some enemies on the White House staff for insistence on regimentation and hierarchy. Nicknames were forbidden, as were rights in the mansion elevator. It was all the result of Mamie's experiences entertaining in military circles. The domestic side of things was her bailiwick, as it had always been, and I complied. But just as intense as Mamie's devotion to social affairs was, her absence from political ones. Not that she didn't have causes. In addition to replying nearly every letter that was sent to her by average Americans, she only voiced to the fight against racism in her own cunning fashion. Marian Anderson was asked to sing at Ike's swearing-in ceremony. Mahalia Jackson crooned at Mamie's birthday party, and even the White House Easter egg roll, revived for the first time since 1940, was fully integrated in the capital city that still held on to segregation. Health had always been an issue with the Eisenhowers. If Mamie was a collection of realities that were from gallbladder to ears, Ike was no tower constitution either. He suffered a heart attack and a stroke during the presidential years. For this reason, more than any other, they look forward to retirement in their house outside Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, the first home they had ever owned in their life. After Ike died in 1969, Mamie, who always considered him her chief hobby, made the sanctity of his memory her primary concern. So long enough to see 1979 miniseries network television about her husband's alleged affair with Kay Summersby, which she still considered a bunch of claptrap. Maybe she had always been now, maybe now, who knows? We just don't know what her thought was on the Kay Summerby's affairs. If it was even an affair at all. I mean, like, if my boyfriend was having an affair with another woman, and we were a very known couple, yeah, I'd keep my mouth shut about that. Or at least try with all my power to say, hey, they're just friends, or deny. Like she's probably she had always probably been in denial. Who knows? We don't know. Just like Eleanor Roosevelt, she liked to keep her private life, well, private. So, yeah. Good for her. Good for Bess. For always trying to keep her private life well private. Because if I'm a famous YouTuber, if I ever became a famous YouTuber and whatnot, and I have a kid, I would keep my kid private unless he or she wants to do YouTube videos. Then I would allow them to do YouTube videos, but under my supervision. You know? Just so that they don't go too crazy or anything. But if they don't want to do YouTube videos with me, or if they don't want to do YouTube videos on their own, then I'll blur up their faces or something, you know? Or do my YouTube videos around their schedules, around my whole family's schedule, you know? Like I am right now. Just continue doing that. Okay? Well, anyways, please rate, subscribe, and comment down below. And if you're on YouTube, please ring that bell notification so they can know when I upload next. And if you're on TikTok, please like and follow my videos. And please, let's get to at least 50 followers for now. And once we do get to 50 followers on TikTok and 50 subscribers on YouTube, then I'll do something special, okay? So let's get to that big 50. Yay! Yay, I can't wait to show you guys what that Sunday special is, okay? Okay, bye. Oh, and please pay for something on either my eBay and or Mercari. Okay, bye.